This is Jablam Hockey with your hosts, Peter Bojarinoff and Paul Swinbeck. Welcome to Jablam Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Bojarinoff. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98, and I am with
Paul Zwambag. You can find me at Zwambag, ZWAMBAG. How's it going, everybody? Peter, what's up?
I'm freezing. I'm really freezing over here.
Well, it is cold in Ontario right now, but why so cold?
Why so cold? The furnace over here is not working anymore. The worst thing is, and everybody's bothering me lately, is Peter, why are you awake at 9 a.m.? It's because my furnace has been so loud on and off every time it's been working the last 2 weeks. I can't go back to sleep. So I've been waking up at normal hours, which is very odd for me. So that's annoying. And then today it just totally busted.
I'm surprised you're waking up at 9 a.m. Normally you're going to bed at 9 a.m.
Yeah, usually I am. But the last 5 days straight, I've been waking up at, I guess, lemmings time, as I like to call it, the regular people.
You're turning into an adult, Peter.
No, this is not happening. As soon as this thing gets fixed, going back to normal.
Nope.
So let's get into the show. We got a lot to talk about with trending stuff. First off, Paul, how did we do on our Saturday's picks last weekend?
Not too bad. You went 8-4, and I went 9-3. We swept the last 6 games from pretty much the second half of the 7 o'clock games all the way to the late games. So that's kind of different for us. We normally miss a couple of those games, but yeah, we did really well. I'm 1 game up on you, 135-96 to your 134-97. So we're doing pretty good. We're doing really good, actually. So tune into jablamhockey.com for the rest of our picks for this Saturday.
For sure. I was iffy with the Leafs playing so well, and it's so rare for me to actually pick the Leafs because I like to be on the edge of maybe they might lose, but they're playing so well. And then the worst thing happened where Anderson got injured, and all of the Leaf Nation, all of our jaws just dropped because, wow. And then, of course, McElhinney went in. He didn't look very good. It's, of course, coming into the game cold. And they didn't play well, too, in front of him. That's what happens with teams. They don't play well sometimes in front of the backup.
Well, and it's against a basement team, so you can't just play half-ass, as you would say. So yeah, they gotta get that out of their game for sure.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into trending now, what do we have this episode? Well, we're team ISOing the Calgary Flames with special guest Ro from the FlamesForum.com. And then we have some fantasy up and down, some last minute maybe pickups Paul might suggest. And then we might do a little bit of a compare. All right, first, trending now. Did you see this, Paul? It just happened. There's rumors that the Leafs might lock up my boy, the Rabbit, Zaitsev. 7 years. Bob McKenzie just dropped this on right now, Thursday night. As we're talking, it's crazy, it's wild, I love it. I've already been talking about it all year almost, that I want the Leafs to lock up Zaitsev, and they should, for a very long time, and 7 years would be great. And if they were rumored, which people are talking about, for about $4.5 million, in my opinion, that's a steal for him.
Yeah, that's getting it under Morgan Riley's contract, which those two guys locked up for long term is pretty good 1-2 punch.
Everybody already talks about how, and I'm one of them, I talk about it all the time, where the Leafs could be maybe like the Blackhawks in terms of that generation, the switch of Taves being Matthews, maybe Kane being Marner. Maybe, especially if you lock them up for these amazing contracts, maybe Zaitsev and Riley are a bit of the Seabrook and Keith, right? If you lock them up and you get those amazing deals on them. So that would be nice. Very nice if they could do that.
Yeah, that would set you guys up real well.
Yeah. So let's get into what do you have? What's the update on the expansion draft?
The expansion draft. They went back and asked the GMs and owners and all the important people behind the scenes, the executives, and they first we're not going to give out the protection lists and who was available, but after the media blew up on it and the public all blew up that they wanted to see this, they have now determined that they're going to set a date, June 18th, 3 days before the expansion draft, that yes, they will be giving out the protected list and who's available to be drafted. So the fans are getting what they wanted, the media is getting what they wanted, and those 3 days are going to be bonkers. You think mock drafts are crazy right now? Those 3 days, you're probably going to see thousands of mock drafts of what guys are doing, because ESPN just put out their list. I know Dauber Hockey put out his mock draft. The Sportsnet put out their mock draft. Everybody's doing mock drafts now, and it's kind of not going to help because you don't know what the protected list is. So the fact that they're going to give it out public is going to make that just insane.
It's crazy that this is kind of what we wanted. The NHL, you weren't sure what they were going to do, but they're being pretty transparent, which is surprising.
Yeah, the fact that the GMs are okay with this, and I think because it was such a big deal on Twitter and all the forums and everything, that they felt that it would just grow the game even more and make this even more exciting for any Vegas Golden Knights who are thinking of becoming fans of the Golden Knights, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just exciting as a fan in general to have those protected lists shown. So I think they did a good thing for the overall game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, exciting. We've already talked about it. We're thinking about doing our own expansions, as we've talked about many times. So maybe we will. Maybe we'll do it for around that time, and when it's the list that comes out, maybe that would be a good time for us to drop a bit of a special episode.
Yeah, I think we definitely should line that up.
Perfect. All right, and then what's going on with WrestleMania?
WrestleMania, they have prop bets out right now. I've never looked at prop bets for WrestleMania before. It's this Sunday, April 2nd. Mm-hmm. They have a prop bet for Connor McDavid making an appearance, Peter. Connor McFrickin-David.
I think it's impossible because the Oilers haven't made the playoffs in so long, and they finally do. Mick Xavier is leading his team into the playoffs, and now he's going to take some time off to go to WrestleMania?
And get, suplexed or, something happened to him in the ring? I don't know. If he does it, if it happens, there's got to be some kind of connection here that they didn't just pick Connor McDavid out of a hat.
I think it would be crazy to have that happen. Maybe Stamkos, but he's coming back. It would be a nice PR move. Tampa Bay might or might not make the playoffs. That would be all right. McDavid, I don't know about that. That'd be crazy. And if he makes an appearance, I think it's more of he's a front row seater. He does a bit of a wave. He's not going inside the ring. Nothing. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a stipulation in the prop bet that he has to go in the ring. He can't just be there watching it. Maybe McDavid's a big wrestling fan and somebody in Vegas knows that.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. That'd be crazy, though. So look out for McDavid maybe being at Mania. I'll be watching, of course. I love Mania, and I think some of the undercards are going to take over the big cards, the main cards, in my opinion. I really want to see Jericho versus KO, Rollins. Maybe I still think Triple H might take over just because the whole injury thing to him. But some of the big ones with the Taker match and the Goldberg match, not looking forward to those. So.
It'll be interesting. He plays in Edmonton Saturday night against Anaheim Ducks, and then he doesn't play another game until Tuesday in LA. So is he going to make that trip all the way to Orlando and then all the way back to LA? I don't think that would go over well with anybody from the Edmonton organization.
Chiarelli's not going to be happy.
No.
All right. But teams that are probably going to be moving over the ocean, and that's in the preseason. Bettman went out and said the Kings and Canucks in China preseason games, and as well the Avalanche versus the Senators regular season games in November in Sweden. So have the Avalanche already been relegated?
Yeah. Maybe are they the home team? They got to be the home team.
Well,
I guess it'll be a
Landeskog
1-1.
on that side, Carlson on the other side. They got some more Swedes, but yeah, it's going to be 1-1 for sure.
And the fact that why'd they choose China and Sweden? Why'd they choose China? Are they going to expand into China and make them part of the Pacific division?
No, I think they're just trying to grow the game, have a lot more people from China watching games in the NHL. I think they're going to make it a more common thing too. So it looks like it.
Interesting, especially with the Olympics being over there in that area.
Mm-hmm.
The next two Olympics are the next two Olympics in that area of the world.
I'm not sure. We know the hockey is going to be pretty much there. So, winter Olympics. But the weird thing is, Bettman has these games going on, but he doesn't intend to have the Olympics going on at all. So it's all about the money, right? Money talks.
And it is going to be Beijing in 2022, the Winter Olympics. So they're going to Pyeongchang and then Beijing. So maybe he's trying to pull something here.
Yeah, he's a sneaky guy.
He is.
All right, let's go on. So I don't know how much we talked about Crosby's goal last week. I think I wanted to, but we talked more about the finger incident and the what incident with O'Reilly. But I don't know if we talked too much about the goal that he scored last week, whereas everybody was calling it the goal of the year. Paul, did you think it was the goal of the year?
I don't think goal of the year. I think it could be a candidate. Like I think if you do like a top 10, it would be top 5 probably. I think it's in the conversation of one of the goals of the year. The dude scored basically a backhanded wrist shot with one hand.
I don't know. In my opinion, it wasn't that great. It was against the lowly Sabres. The sea spread open for him to go in. Yes, Crosby was going pretty fast, but it looked like they just kind of let him walk right in, and then the last defender tried to attempt to do something to Crosby. All he did was use one hand, cover his stick, and then backhand flip it with the other hand, which is a great move. That's great. But I think a lot of players practice this. I know I don't play ice hockey that much, but I practice that in ball hockey all the time, and obviously it would be easier that way. But I don't play that much. It was a move I did when I was a little kid, and I did it often. But again, I don't know. I think a lot of NHL players, in my mind, can do that. But in a game, in the moment, it doesn't happen. It's not that often, right?
Nick Bonino said after the game that he's seen many guys do this in practice, but they're standing still and nobody's on them. That's what's different about Crosby. He did it while moving pretty much close to top speed.
Yeah.
And has the confidence to be like, I'm doing it, and I'm gonna have a guy on my shoulder.
Yeah.
I think if anybody else scored the goal, just because Crosby's known for his backhand, that everybody would be like, if you asked Crosby to do that identical play again, he would do the exact same thing because he's that confident with his backhand. Where I think a lot of players, it would have happened as a fluke, and it was like, whoa, I didn't know I could do that. Where Crosby's no, he knew he could do that.
I think if you see a Patrick Kane, I think we've seen him do it a few times too, a bit of more of a spinorama from the corner, per se. So, there's still some players in my mind that could still kind of pull it off, but it might not be that in that kind of form. But again, less than a week later, there's Joel Armia's goal. Did you see that one, Paul? In my opinion, it's way better than Crosby's.
See, I find it the exact same faults you have for Crosby's goal, I have for Joel Armia's goal. So,
and what is it? He's not going that fast?
He's playing against the lowly Devils, which was a knock on Crosby's goal. He's playing against the lowly Sabres.
Yeah, but he was going through players.
Yeah.
Crosby never went through one player.
Yeah, I guess so. But then he just puts a top corner like every player in the NHL can do.
It happens very rarely after deking the pants of 3 players going north-south. or east-west, however you call it. I can't think right now. But, like, I mean, he went from his own zone all the way through, and just unbelievable, in my opinion. Yes, it happens very often where guys do deke the pants out of guys, one or two guys. He did it to, like, three guys, and then a perfect shot.
Did you see David Pasternak's spinorama, one-hand spinorama?
Did he score?
He did not score, but he deked the pants out of that guy.
I did see that as well, and I didn't see the end. I think that was all the little gif that people put on the internet was the amazing deke move that he did on the player. But again, he didn't score, so it's not that great. It was an amazing move, though, but that's all it was, right? So, great players make great moves, and it happens. But if you complete it with all that and finish with a goal, it's that much better.
Yeah.
And Crosby did that, so, you know, it in my mind, yeah, maybe it's a goal this year, but I don't know if it's top 5, in my opinion.
Really?
Right? I think it's maybe goal of the week for sure, maybe not goal of the month, in my opinion. So there should be a top 10 list of just the goals. I'd like to see that. So there's been quite a few good goals out there, but Armia's, I think, was at least the best that I've seen in a little while. And but you know, it's going. But first off, Paul, let's move on to the Pens. What's going on with them now? 4 losses right in a row. They've got a lot of injuries. Is it just the injuries?
I really do think everybody's just moved up the lineup because Malkin's out. The defense core, we got AHL guys that are coming up, and they're just not stepping up like they did last year. We had quite a few injuries last year, and they had troubles. They didn't have troubles last year because the AHL guys filled in prominently. This year, it's looking a little rougher. Like Carter Rowney on the second line, that should not happen. He's a fourth line guy right now. I really do think it's all injuries. And those 4 losses were against Ottawa, who's fighting for the Atlantic. The Philadelphia Flyers, who the Pens hate playing because they always play them tough and hard, and the Flyers are playing unreal right now. They're scoring 5 and 6 goals a game every other night. The New York Rangers, who are a pretty top team in the Metro as well, and then the Chicago Blackhawks, who are starting to heat up once again. So those 4 losses are against 4 pretty decent teams. Philadelphia kind of on the outskirts of that, but because of the Pennsylvania rivalry, that heats up no matter what the standings are.
You play any team right now, everybody's playing hard. Everybody has stepped up their game the last 2-3 weeks. You can tell that when you're watching anybody. And the weird thing is, the teams that have nothing to lose, they're playing like they have nothing to lose. So there's no worries, and they're playing pretty hard too.
Yeah, they're playing spoilers.
Yeah, so they're playing well too. So it is tough right now for everybody, and hopefully the Pens have guys coming back. Are any of them going to be coming back soon?
I believe they're all going to be back in time for the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make it a game or two before, or they'll just hold them out. I think it will depend on if they can get that home advantage, the second spot on the Metro. I think Washington has the Metro wrapped up. I think they're 6 points ahead in the standings. So they're 5 points ahead of Columbus, and then 8 points ahead of Pittsburgh. So Columbus and Pittsburgh are still fighting for the home advantage. I don't think the Rangers are going to catch up. They're 6 points back of Pittsburgh for the third spot. Yeah. So I think if they can't catch Columbus, they'll just sit out and have the guys come in playoffs right from the get-go.
And the hard thing is with the Pens, with all these injuries, but how many guys came up from the AHL last year? Kanako, the list goes on, right?
Rust, Sheary.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to have even harder holes to fill if all these guys just came up last year. You've already got holes in the depth, and then with all these injuries added, you're going to be scraping the barrel.
Yeah,
right?
And we've already brought up like Gunsel's from the AHL this year, and he's now regular, and he should be coming back. I'm pretty sure he practiced last game. Ron Hainsey, our pickup from the trade deadline, he's on his way back. It's just our defense core is hurting, and it seems to be always hurting, and that is basically because of our main man, Chris Letang, who can't stay healthy. If that guy could stay healthy, he would be in every conversation with Erik Karlsson, I think.
Yeah, he'd be putting up a lot of points. All right, let's move on to my Maple Leafs, who the rookies are all destroying records. It's crazy. So Matthews just passed Wendell Clark's 34 goals. He has 35 now. What's the update with my boy Mitzi, Paul?
He's got an assist tonight, so he now has the assist record.
He surpassed Gus Bodner for 40 assists, and now he has 41, right? Amazing. And then there's William Nylander. Again, I'm recording the game. I don't know if he's got any points yet. But up to tonight, he's got a live streak of 12 straight games with a point. The previous record was 8 for a rookie in straight games, and he's got 12. So I hope he's continuing it. I don't know. I haven't looked at the score yet tonight. And yeah, I think there was a 4-way tie with Bodner, Nevin, and Daoust, who had 8 or 9 games. And then there's Zachary Hyman, who has 4 shorthanded goals, and he's already passed the rookie record for that. So any other rookie records that maybe Connor Brown or Zaitsev can break? I don't know. I didn't look into any of those or defenseman points. So hopefully there is maybe for them something left. But it's pretty great to see with that huge flood of rookies, and they're all breaking ancient Leaf records for rookies. So it's pretty cool.
And it's kind of crazy because Babcock was always, when he was coaching the Red Wings, it was he never played his rookies. He always let them develop in the Grand Rapids. And maybe that wasn't Mike Babcock. Maybe that was more Ken Holland and the Detroit way, because he's playing his rookies. They are his workhorses, and maybe they're just that much better of rookies than what Detroit always had. But
yeah,
these kids look like studs, every last one of them.
They're fabulous. I'm even surprised with guys like Hyman and Connor Brown, and you know what? Maybe the Leafs might make a few moves, and then we have a few more rookies maybe coming in next year with Lepsic and Kapanen. Kapanen was flying last game. I didn't know that he was that fast, and he was really flying. So if he can bring up some speed for the Leafs maybe next year, and if maybe a JVR or a Bozak or both of them get moved, that would open up room for them. But in terms of UFAs, I wouldn't mind a guy like if the Sharks release Joe Thornton to sign him for 2 years, because the Leafs will still have them under their entry-level cap hit. You could add 1 or 2 good vets like that. That would be great for them. But we'll see. Before we get into more stuff, I did want to mention, and we're going to be talking about it later with Rowe and his Flames, but that Calgary Flames versus Kings game was insane last night. Did you see any of it, Paul?
I did not see any of it, no.
Oh, man, it was great. Like, I knew it was going to be pretty good with the whole Tkachuk Doughty scenario. If you didn't know, a couple of weeks ago, Tkachuk did a bump back on Doughty. Right before you get that puck and the defenseman's going on you, you bump back, but he went and threw his elbow into Doughty's face. Doughty complained instantly. Like, this guy's a bit of a, pathetic loser kind of thing, and nobody should be doing this thing. I think that had a lot to do with the suspension. I don't know how much Tkachuk would have even got if Doughty didn't say anything, in my opinion. So he got 2-game suspension. So this is the first rematch of it, and you knew something was going to happen. Instantly, Tkachuk's going after everybody. He even said something before the game. During the pre-skate, they were all at center ice. You haven't seen this since almost like the early 2000s, the 90s would happen often, where guys would be skating to center ice, especially the enforcers, giving chirps, trying to, send a message to the other team before the game. Wow, this game was totally different. Back like an old-time classic old-school game. It was crazy. And then instantly, Tkachuk tries to fight Muzzin, like early in the game. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he ends up fighting, I don't know if it was McNabb or whatever. It was a good tilt. And then you had Iginla fighting Englund. Like, I think Englund went and maybe tried to hit Doughty or whatever. So he went after him. Iginla's 39. He's a great player, but he can still fight. And he destroys Englund. Woo! Amazing. Amazing fight. Iginla was amazing. And then he destroys the score sheet. Just crazy. Tkachuk even later tries to take out Doughty. Doughty dives under the hit. That was crazy. And then, Iginla ends up with a Gordie Howe hat trick. He was amazing. A night that started out as a Tkachuk night for a slobber knocker ended with a signature vintage Jerome McGinley night. Crazy. And what could be a final salute to Jerome McGinley's maybe last season and his last game at Saddledome. It was crazy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what Rowe has to say about how the Calgary fans reacted to everything that went on. Because are they fans of Tkachuk? Are they not fans of Tkachuk? Like who? I would really like to hear what he has to say about that.
He's a feisty kid, and there's always one or two of these every year that comes out, and you hope they turn into a guy like Marchand, right? You see a lot of these guys. I can't remember some of them. I think wasn't Zach Ronaldo had a great first year for the Flyers, and you might have thought he might have had a decent season, and then a Marcus Foligno, and so some of these guys break through that barrier and become solid NHLers. Some of them become superstars, which is great with Marchand, and some of them are just pretty good, like Gallagher
or like Tom Wilson in Washington.
So yeah, and they take different routes.
Yeah.
So I think Tkachuk has a little bit more skill than most of these guys. So I still think he might be an all-star type guy. So we'll see what happens. But he's been great this season for the Flames, and can't wait to see more of him. But let's move on to the Eastern Conference. It's pretty wild right now. There's still possibilities of teams sneaking in.
Yeah, the final wild card spot is getting really tight.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. How are the Canes playing, Paul? These guys are playing amazing.
Yeah, 7-0-3 in their last 10. They're 4 points out of the playoff spot that Boston currently holds right now. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, Sebastian Aho is playing unreal.
Yeah,
and his teammates are playing great with him. Tampa's, even though with the injuries and the trades, they're still playing pretty good. And Kucherov is 2 points per game in the last 15 games? He's been I think he's got 27 points in 15 games or something like that. He's playing unreal. And could Stamkos be back?
Yeah, he's supposed to come back Saturday or Sunday.
Wow. It's so weird. And you thought a few weeks ago Tampa Bay might not even be making the playoffs. Now this is happening. It's crazy. The Islanders still playing fairly well with Tavares. He's bringing up his team's level. But then you have Bruins sitting Rask, and they were losing a few games the last week. And then what was scary with the Leafs, Anderson injury, you thought he might be out long term, but he ended up playing tonight for them against the Predators. So a lot is still up for the grabs here in the Eastern Conference, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, everybody, and they all just keep winning. All those 4 teams, Boston, Tampa, New York, and Carolina, they just keep winning. And Toronto's just nope, I'm just going to keep chipping away and getting points, and it's ridiculous. It's going to be so tight coming down to the end. You look at some of the schedules, and you're like, oh, they have a really hard schedule. Oh, no, they have a pretty difficult schedule, too. They're all kind of playing the same teams, all the Metro Division, Washington, Columbus, Pittsburgh, maybe a couple Nashville in there or Chicago. So it's gonna come right down to the end, which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a downer for one of these teams is gonna be whoever does make that last spot. They will have played very well to get that last spot, but then they have to play the Capitals in the first round. So
well, I'm telling you, Toronto is not sitting in a very comfortable spot right now. They still need to win.
They do. They totally do. And those last 4 games, everybody keeps on looking at the schedule, and it's Pittsburgh, Washington, Tampa, and Columbus. So it's going to be very hard for them to even solidify one of those spots too. So we'll see what happens. All right, time for this week's Team ISO. This week we are Team ISOing the Calgary Flames. Again, it's where we talk in detail about one specific team. You got our opinion last year, and this year we're going into the blogospheres and getting more detail on those teams. And this week's guest is Ro. You can follow him on Twitter at FlameStamps. That's FlameSStamps. And he's a blogger for FlamesForum.com. Welcome to the show, Ro.
Thanks so much for having me, gents.
All right, let's get into it. First, how about the game last night? That was wild.
Yeah, we haven't seen a wild game like that, just in terms of the energy in the building, all the different storylines that were playing out last night. So it made for an exciting game to start off, but it certainly didn't wind up with the result the home team was looking for.
Yeah, I already talked about it a little bit in the show, but how do you like? First off, let's just go right into Tkachuk. How do you like his game so far this season?
Yeah, I think if you were going to ask the question of the biggest surprise for the team, you're going to have to look at him up front, at least. It's a guy who's coming straight off his draft year, makes the team. And there's some issues, I suppose, early on, just with some penalty troubles.
Yeah.
But I think some of the reputation there, some of it is warranted, but most recently, kind of turn of the year here, 2017 January on, he's really turned around his game. He's been pretty quiet actually on ice in terms of the stuff until the Doughty incident. Yeah. So I think some of the issues that fans have, if you don't watch him every game, then you just sort of assume he has this bad reputation. But he's really toned down the act. But then, of course, something blows up. Yeah. And Doughty, the suspension. So if you don't watch him all the time, you would assume that there's some issues there to try to rein him in. But overall, I would say Flames fans are happy to have him on the team because he adds a dimension that really there aren't too many players on the roster that are going to bring his level of skill and grit.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Like I remember earlier in the season, I can't remember who it was. Was it the Senators or something? Or the Avs or something, but he had a bit of an altercation. And then only about a few games later with the Leafs, my Leafs, again, with a bit of a slew foot on, I think it was Marincin.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, a bit of a slew foot kind of action and stuff like that a couple of times. So if people wanted something, it's hard to say, especially when it's late in the game. It's a bit iffy. It's on the borderline stuff. And then, I don't know what, I thought the incident with Doughty wasn't that bad. I think it happens quite often where the guy does a bump back, and obviously he got a bit of the elbow up in Doughty's face. And with Doughty complaining, I think that put up that issue to NHL bosses, right? So
yeah, maybe. I think there's some issues. I would agree in terms of bump backs, but you usually don't do that with your elbow first into the chops there. So did I appreciate 2 games? No, of course not. But you knew he was going to get something after Doughty coming out.
Yeah. Doughty's got some leverage there. But in terms of the actual game, like, he was great, and he brought up his level, and he kept it up. Like, he backed up his words, too, which was great, and you love that out of a rookie, too, which is pretty crazy. But the rest of the team looked fairly flat.
Yeah, I think he's had a bit of a reputation, a good one for the team in terms of dragging players into the game, especially on his line. So he's going to pull people in. He went too far, I think, in last night's game. He knew he had to answer the bell. He tried to do that right off the hop. He was too excited. Thankfully, he went down a weight class there. Muzzin didn't know what the heck was going on. But I think some of the stuff that he was saying before the game, during the warm-up, it brought the players in. It changed the dynamic of the game. Usually that's a good thing, but this went over the top. And so it seemed to have thrown the team off the game plan. Yeah. And so now today, if you read some of the stuff in coverage, they're just chatting a little bit about, well, Tkachuk's going to try to keep the focus on the team and not try to deal with some of his antics there. So he noticed that there were repercussions, and it affected the outcome of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. I still, you still got to put it on a bit of the rest of the team, because he, sometimes he's going to bring the team's level high, and sometimes going to be a little low, but the rest of the team look, a little bit more out of it. But for Calgary Flames fans, how did you guys feel about Aginla's maybe last game in the Saddle Dome.
Yeah, I mean that's bittersweet, and to see him fight in a different jersey there, I can guarantee everybody had conflicted emotions there. He's the enemy in a Kings jersey, but this is Jerome we're talking about. So I didn't like to see it. I don't know what they were thinking last time they played when Iginla tried to fight Giordano. Nobody wants to see that. I mean, I guess some people do want to see that kind of tilt, but
superstar tilt.
Yeah, I guess, but if you wear that emblem on your sleeve, if that's your heart and soul, you don't want to see that kind of interaction. But that's my take. I know a lot of guys would say that they'll be chomping at the bit to see something like that unravel. So I'm surprised he fought England, but he stood tall last night for sure. I think he'll be back though. In a fairy tale world, of course he comes back. We win the cup, and everything is right in the universe, right? So if he plays like he did last night, which he was a monster, that was Jerome of old, but in a different jersey. He's going to find a contract for next year. So whether that's with the Flames, I don't think so. But
all right, let's get on to the back end. I don't know. Has Dougie Hamilton looked even better this year?
Yeah, I think so. If you wanted to pull out an all-star from the roster, he would be leading on D. He's had a quiet year just in terms of because he plays with Giordano, but he has put up points. He's fourth in team scoring. So not only that, he's controlling play, right-handed shot, big body, and he can just break out of the zone, either carry it up or he's going to get that puck out. So. Yeah, we're talking about a young player. What is he, 23? Signed up for multi-years. So things look really good on the back end in that top three for the Flames. And Hamilton has led the way. Kind of a slow start. The whole team had a slow start, but ever since about November, he's turned it around. It's just done his quiet thing, right? And so I would say that absolutely he's an all-star on the back end there. Giordano's finally found his game as well. And once the team figured out this new system, things have been working. They lack a certain level of consistency, but that top pairing for sure. I mean, we're going to take that to the bank, and you got to rely on those guys. I'm not sure if they play. They don't play heavy minutes in terms of 30-minute games or even 25-minute games. They tend to play all 6D regularly. So I would wonder, he would probably put up some more points there if he's playing even bigger minutes. So, but definitely, I would put him down as the all-star.
Yeah. And then because of the whole turnaround with all these guys, like, is it because of Glenn's big, thing in the media that he did? Is that a big part of it? Or has it been maybe Elliott turning his season around too?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's not one thing. They went on this tear. It's what's brought them into a playoff spot. But you're riding now a goalie who has figured it out. He can win games. There's a player who can win games on his own. So Elliott's turnaround, it coincides, I think, with a team turnaround. And I would say that it's taken the team, or it took the team a little bit longer to adopt the system that Gullickson has had in play. When they started to figure that out, well, they had a couple of different choices there. After getting blown out in Edmonton, this is the end of January, blown out in Toronto, blown out in Montreal, and now, of course, it's a legend taking the train into Ottawa there, and the team just sort of sitting down and hashing it out. So I think, that's part of it. You probably see an adoption of system. Elliott finally kicking in and taking over that number one spot and firmly hanging on to that. And then a couple of trades along the way too. But that piece there at the end of January that started that run, critical piece there, but multifaceted of why things turned around.
Seems like it. All right, then we all love Johnny Hockey, and Monahan also is playing really well again this year. But who would you say is this year's underrated guy?
I think I'll pick a couple guys. you have Hamilton quietly on the D. If you have to pick somebody in the front end, we already talked about Tkachuk.
Yeah.
So let's not talk about him again. But let's stick with his line there. And I think the guy who has emerged here really carried the team early on, especially when that top line wasn't clicking. And that's Michael Backlund. And he's in kind of the running for Selke consideration, and rightly so. He should probably wants to put up some better numbers right now coming down the stretch, but he's an all-around player and has really come into his own. He's a two-way player, yet he's got 50 points, and he's putting up those points playing against the toughest opposition every single night. So this guy has just been consistent since the beginning of the season, and that's given Tkachuk the capability of emerging like he has and developing like he has to play with some offensively minded defensive line mates. So I would put it to Michael Backlund there and say, yeah, this team would be in a different spot if he doesn't emerge as one of the key players here. Sometimes that line's playing as the top line, especially in November, December time.
Cool. Paul's any prospects we want to talk about?
Yeah, is there room for Mark Jankowski next year? He's a centerman, and you guys are pretty set in the center. Backlund, Monahan, Sam Bennett. Is Jankowski going to have a spot next year?
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of prospects in terms of guys who are ready to jump in. Jankowski might be one of them. He played up he had one game in, and he would probably be the most ready to come up. I guess it really depends on whether or not what happens in expansion. I think that has a key there. But he's essentially going to be playing around a Matt Stajan spot. I would like to see the Sam Bennett situation sort of play out in a different way for him to get some better minutes, maybe some better line mates. I think it would be tough for Jankowski to come in right off the bat, as it is for any young player in this league. And case in point, you look at Sam Bennett, to come in and play the center position. That's a tough position to play as a young player. So there'll be a bit of a learning curve. So does Jankowski come in and take some time on the wing? That's possible, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him stick around in the A for another year, because we have, again, depending on expansion, but we have all the same centermen signed up, and you have to think we have a fifth man in there in Freddie Hamilton, who barely gets into any games. So he's going to have to jump two players in order to get a regular spot in the lineup. So I don't see that happening for next year.
Yeah, and you said the prospect cover is pretty bare. You got some pretty decent goalies. John Gillies and David Ridge have kind of been sharing time with Stockton. What's the goalie situation going into next year with two UFAs in Johnson and Elliott?
Well, I think you're going to have to ask the GM what he's going to do. I think Elliott has played well enough now. He's gotten over the first 2 months, 3 months maybe, where Johnson had emerged and you had question marks there, but now it's firmly in Elliott's hands, and I would expect the team to re-sign him. Whether that means Johnson returns again, I'm not sure what happens there. Could one of Riddick or Gillies come in? That's possible to play on the back end. Who emerges there as the backup for next season if one of them were to come up? I think fans would have started the season there assuming that Gillies was just going to take that spot, but that's not a guarantee anymore. He's playing more games. He's taken a bit more in terms of minutes, but Riddick has some better numbers there. So I don't pay attention too much and watch the Stockton games there to give you a better idea, but we'll have to see what happens. I'm pretty sure they're going to take one of those goalies, re-sign them long term. Whether they take both, I don't know. And if they don't, then yeah, obviously one of them will come up.
Yeah, and they're basically stopgapping for Tyler Parsons because that kid's going to be a stud in the net. So
Yeah, we were using the same. We were having the same conversation around Gillies for a couple of years, and he missed significant time in injury. So we'll have to see as these goalies develop, as most of them do. They develop late, and see who does emerge as a contender there to eventually take top spot there. But that's my sense is that's a number of years away.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and let's round off with the Flames currently in that top wild card spot. So if you had the choice, who would you like the Flames to play right now with? I'm guessing either Hawks, Sharks, Oilers, or Ducks. Who do you think is the better matchup for these young Flames?
Well, if we're going to just pick today, I think San Jose's trying to figure out their game.
Yeah.
I think I would like to see a San Jose over in Anaheim. I would like to see I would like to see us play against the Oilers. I think that would be fantastic for the province. That would just be nuts to watch. Yeah, I don't want to play Anaheim. Definitely wouldn't want to play Chicago, but at the end of the day, you have to go through those teams anyways if you want to make the big show. And so yeah, I would say we'll try to hit up on San Jose or the Oilers there.
All right, Ro, thanks for coming on the show, and good luck with the Flames. And it would be great and fantastic if they could match up with the Oilers in the playoffs.
And not this year. If not this year, then it's going to happen. I mean, the league's shifting here. It's looking good for Canadian teams, so there's some exciting times coming.
Cool. All right, Ro, thanks for coming on the show. Again, you can find Ro at Flame Stamps on Twitter and on the inner websites on flamesforum.com. Thanks, Ro, for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime, gents. Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Paul, what do you have for us for some fantasy up and down?
Well, hopefully you're in your finals of your fantasy hockey or your semifinals. But I'm going to give you some guys that are playing pretty well the past 2 weeks and are pretty much available in all of your leagues. I'm going to start off with Lee Stempniak of the Carolina Hurricanes, 10% owned. In the past 2 weeks, he's played 8 games, 47 ranked overall in Yahoo, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. And as we talked about before, Carolina is playing great hockey. They play a back-to-back Saturday and Sunday, so that's really going to help him get into your lineup. For a Sunday night game, he might not make it into your Saturday because it's probably packed full of games. Actually, I only think there's 7 or 8 games this Saturday, so there might be a good chance Stempniak could get into your lineup. Sven Andrigado from Colorado is playing pretty good hockey since he's been traded from Montreal. 7 games played, 53rd overall ranking, 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points, 15 shots on goal, so it's pretty good. 4 goals in 15 shots is a pretty good shooting percentage. He's only 4% owned, so you're likely going to get him. He's also left wing, right wing, dual eligible, so you'll be able to fit him into your lineup easily. Sean Couturier from the Philadelphia Flyers, 8% owned, 7 games, 5 points, 1 goal, 4 assists, a +7 for the Philadelphia Flyers, who, like we said before, are playing lights out hockey, scoring 5 goals here and there, no problem. And they play back-to-back Saturday, Sunday as well, so you'll get 2 games out of them if you pick them up by Friday night. A couple of guys on the back end, Brady Shea with the New York Rangers. He's 28% owned, so might not be available in all your leagues. 7 games played in the past 2 weeks, 87th overall, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. So if you need some back end help, Brady Shea should be available. But if not, go with Jacob Slavin with the Carolina Hurricanes. You're going to get 2 games on that Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. So he's 21% owned, 5 points in the last 8 games. So he's still putting up pretty decent numbers for you. As for the goaltender situation, I'm going to give you all the teams that are playing back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, and hopefully you can pick up one of their backups to try and pad your stats, try and get a win here and there. Anaheim, so you could pick up Bernier because Gibson's now back. Carolina, Lack or Ward is available probably. Dallas, I wouldn't really target Dallas with Lettinen or Niemi. Minnesota, Stalick. Stalick is 3% owned. He's currently winning 3-1 against Ottawa. He was brought up to kind of give the Dubnyk and Kemper a head shake to be like, listen, it's just not your net. You got to play and play well. So Stalick could be available. Nashville plays a back-to-back, so UC Saros is playing really good hockey. Pekka Rinne will probably get the easier start, but Saros is playing very well, and he's 7% owned, so I would probably target Saros or Stalick. Philadelphia with Newvirth you probably won't be able to get, and Tampa Bay also plays a back-to-back, and Budai you probably won't be able to get. So I'd really hone in on Stalick and Saros. They're probably the best available guys that are going to not ruin your stats. I think Saros would be my number one target. He's 7% owned, and he's probably open and available in your league. So, yeah, go with UC Saros with Nashville Predators.
Perfect. And he's a pretty underrated goalie, too. So,
yeah,
it would be a good pick. All right. We were going to do a compare. I wanted to talk about why the Wild would probably lose in the first round. We were thinking about maybe doing a win or lose of the Wild. But both Paul and I really think the Wild are going to blow it in the first round. Paul, tell people why.
In their last 10 games, 1-7-2, they are on a downward spiral. And case in point, when we talked about Alex Stalick getting called up and playing, Dubnyk and Kemper just aren't getting it done. They're not scoring. They're just not playing very good hockey right now. I don't know what has happened. Out of nowhere, they've lost their depth. They're not playing well. Parise's out. May not return until playoffs.
That was a dirty play. Wow, he did not look good.
No. So, and they're likely lining up against St. Louis or Nashville, and those two teams are, St. Louis is 8-1-1 and Nashville 7-2-1, and both of their goalies, Allen and Rinne, are playing lights out. I just can't see them winning 4 games against either the Blues or the Predators.
Yeah, Boudreau looks like he has really lost that team, and he's so befuddled behind the bench in the press conferences and everything. He's losing it, and he looks like he's really lost his team. And remember, at the beginning of the year, we talked about this and we made our selections. We thought the Wild were going to be the worst team in the league this year. I said, I think there's a huge question mark with this team. They could be good, but on paper and everything, they shouldn't be, right? So Dubnyk has really helped this team, but now that he's lost his game and he's been bad, and I got him because I bought him low at the draft for fantasy because I knew he was going to be still fairly good, and I got him late, which is great. But now he's ruining my fantasy team, and he's not helping his team at all. So this Wild team is floundering.
Yeah, and what happens with Bruce Boudreau in the playoffs? Anywhere he plays, he has a great regular season team, and then they just flop in the playoffs. And I think that flop is happening a little too early, Boudreau. I think you're in for a tough end of April.
Yeah. So we both think they're gonna flop in the first round, and that's our first tip already for fantasy. That's pretty much this episode. But stay tuned for next episode when I'm going to do a bit of a top 10. I'm going to put a blog out for teams or players to look out for the playoffs. I'm not too sure which one, maybe both. Hopefully we have another Team ISO. We're going to do the season awards, and then we're also going to do a bit of a fantasy playoff preview. We'll do our playoff previews after the following week, but a bit of a fantasy playoff preview, what teams to look out for, and players too. But yeah, the Wild not looking good so right now. Yeah, that's it for our show. And again, remember, check out SublimHockey.com. All of our stuff, we had a ton of Trending Now stuff, right?
Yeah, and it's all going to be in the game notes, bud.
Yep, so it's all there. And if you can, rate and review us on iTunes. And remember, we're also on YouTube. Check out that if you don't like iTunes so much. All right, see you next week.
Bye.